Torrin's already mentioned the role of Ealing, what was Ealing Art College, and also I'm not sure when the Royal College of Music came to Ealing, but I think that might have had a very kind of key role in nurturing Ealing as a cradle for musicians. The other thing that is probably not so well known is the role of Jim Marshall, the father of Loud, as he's often known. So in this, there's a couple of chapters in here which talk about Ealing and Hanwell and some of the venues that are sadly no longer here, but also nurtured some of the other bands from what was known as the British R&B or British beat explosion at the time. The Feathers, which is almost opposite the premises of the Ealing Club, now a Metro Bank, was a venue that the Who played in a lot. And the Who, as I understand it, had been around under different names for some time before the anniversary we're now celebrating. So maybe even a couple of years or so, they've been playing under various names. As Torrin mentioned, they had a strong Ealing connection with Pete Townsend at the Ealing College of Art, and the Feathers was one of their regular venues, as was the Oldfield Arms, which is now a block of flats in Greenford. The reason that Marshall is so important is that Jim Marshall was formerly a drummer, and he'd set up a music shop in Hanwell High Street, the Uxbridge Road, Hanwell, and he, as a former drummer, obviously mainly was stocking drums, but at some point he met an engineer who had a quite novel design for a guitar amplifier, and together they worked on this. He is the commercial input and the engineering input, produced a model of what for then was a hugely powerful amplifier, and this became really his bestseller and what people now know of from the Marshall name. So Marshall's shop in Hanwell, which was originally a small shop where there's now gents hairdressers, expanded over the road. There was a bigger premises where they sold the amplifiers, and Hanwell is a district, and was a district at the time, which was very popular with musicians because the rents were very cheap, and there was reasonable rehearsal space nearby as well. So Bob's already mentioned the viaduct, the room above the viaduct. There was also what's now called the Hanwell Community Centre, which was formerly a charity school, but became a really good venue for bands who were using louder amplification to rehearse, because it is in a fairly isolated site, and you know, it was had a little hall that could be used, and so bands like Deep Purple and so on, so the loud bands of the later 60s are famous for having rehearsed there. But all these bands, Robert's already mentioned Ginger Baker, Jack Bruce went on to form Cream. John Lord from Deep Purple was in a band called the Artwoods that was formed by Ronnie Wood's brother Arthur back in the day, and they were regulars at the Crawdaddy and the also at Eel Pie Island, and so this is the sort of epicenter of a whole kind of region of that nurtured this early music, which then spread further into the southwestern sort of hinterland of London, so Richmond and out towards Windsor. The Ricky Tick Club is one of the key clubs, or a selection of clubs even. It became something of an empire that was based originally in Windsor. And so this whole area, this sort of southwestern London suburbs and Ealing and Hanwell at its centre, has really this fantastic history of nurturing the development of this music.